Okay, welcome everybody. We're glad you could make it tonight. We're especially glad and honored to have Bob Clouser with us. He doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway because some people may have not heard of him. I can't imagine who in the fly fishing world never heard of you, Bob. But Bob's now, he started, well, leading a bass fishing. Are you still guiding with bass fishing?
No.
Down in Florida? No? Okay. So
no, hey, it was time for me at my age to fish for myself.
There you go. There you go.
Have some fun.
All right. Well, anyway, I wanted to, everybody knows of the Clouser fly, and if you haven't fished with it in your fly fishing world, shame on you. Here's an opportunity to learn from the master himself, and I'll just let Bob take it away. Thank you so much, Bob, for showing us how to tie your famous fly.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You might not believe this, but my friend Jackie and I, we still throw Clouser minnows all over the place and catch fish on them.
Well, so do we.
Anyhow, I want to just introduce you a little bit to some of the materials that we're going to use tonight. Have any of you folks heard of the Airx Hook Company?
Yes, they are great flies. Hooks.
Yeah, they're made over in Denmark, I think, and they're just absolutely a super hook. And they actually asked me to design a hook that will work good for the Clouser minnow in all types of water. Now, what they meant was salt and fresh, and not too thick of a body of a hook either. I don't like them real thick. And they, maybe I can hold one up here on a tweezers and show you here. I'm going to be tying on them. The body on this hook is not too thick. Some of the old hooks that we used to use were really thick, and they were hard to penetrate the fish's mouth. And these hooks here will stay in the fish for sure if you keep pressure on them, like any other type of fighting things. Another type of hook that I have out here, and I can show you a fly build on it, is a hook called the shrimp hook, and it's an Airx 250. When they sent me this hook here, it just opened my eyes to everything, because now we can tie Clouser minnows in all sizes of length, and have them that we can throw them into shallow water. You can use these hooks with a 1/80th ounce eye or a B chain eye on a weedless type Clouser minnow, or what we call a bendback, which I'm going to show you how to make one here real shortly. So it has a slight bend, and that's where the eyes will sit in. I'll show you all that here shortly. And here's the pink one I had up a while ago tied on that hook. Everything is tied on the hook point side of the whole hook itself. There's nothing on the bottom. It's bare. And we don't use anything heavier than a 180 eye, unless the guys want to fish them in deep water. But here where we are in Florida, the deepest water we fish is probably 4 feet in some of these bays that we fish.
Bob, would you hold the package for that fly hook up one more time, please, sir?
Yes. It's a shrimp 250, and this is a size number 6 that I had up there.
Thank you, sir.
Got it? Okay, thank you. Now, also, some of the things that you don't really need this color, but this was the first color of lead eyes that I started out with in my shop way back in the early 80s. And I still use the red with the black pupil. Also, there's another eye. It's available. Wapsie Fly Company makes them in their solid black colors. They're called Presentation. and they're shaped just like an hourglass. They will center themselves on the hook for you when you're trying to tie a Clouser minnow or something like that. But I still use these. It's kind of a trademark type thing when I make a fly. I can show you here on this half and half, the eye, that is a presentation already dyed black eye that I get from Wapsi, and I use on a lot of flies too. So you got a couple choices where you can buy different types of eyes. As far as bead chains concerned, we use the bead chain in the shallow water where you don't want so much splash. And also the bead chain really allows you to throw a lot of these Clouser minnows on a 5-weight fly rod. So 5, 6, 7, 8 on up. They're all available for that type of fishing, shallow water, bend back type flies. The first
Hey,
fly,
Bob,
yes.
when you use the bead chain, are they colored or are they like silver or copper?
We have black ones, we have gold and silver. My two best colors, and I want to tell all you guys on here, even with flash and stuff like that, for fish, is gold. Gold flash in a lot of different flies, even if they're all white. Gold flash seems to attract more of the bass type species. I know smallmouth bass just love yellow and gold. Those colors, if you don't have something like that with you, you might as well stay home, you know. But and my favorite smallmouth fly, and actually it's good for striped bass. Species down here in saltwater love it too. Is called a chartreuse. Yellow over chartreuse body, a belly. That has gold flash of blue and gold crystal flash mixed together in it, so it's really bright in the water. The reason I'm showing you this pink thing, I don't know if any of you guys get on Facebook or anything. You can follow me on there sometimes. Down here where I'm at here in Florida, the word pink is getting really popular. We're selling pink flies, pink bucktails. Jackie and I started making a shallow water series like this here pink and white thing. And I don't know how to say this. I wish Lefty could still hear this. Lefty came up with that little phrase, you know, he said, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. Now they're changing that to pink. If it ain't pink mixed with chartreuse, it ain't no use. So just remember that little saying from a color combination of a Clouser minnow. So, so anyhow, we're going to put the number 2 hook in the vise. I want to make sure that you guys have a good sighting of this. Can you see the hook pretty clear?
That looks good.
Okay. And thread, I know you can't read that on that spool, but I still tie a lot of my flies, even the larger ones, with a 6/0 tying thread. And my brand is, my favorite brand is UNI thread. This is 6/0. Now 6/0, I think you might understand this if I talk about taking a bull rope and going out your door and take the bull rope and a pencil, a wooden pencil along, and this bull rope's about an inch thick. You wrap that thing to a telephone pole, the pencil, and you can pull that pencil right out of that rope. If you use kite thread, thin thread, and wrap that pencil to that pole, you'll never get the pencil out of the pole, because now you got way much more pressure points with a thinner thread than what you do with a thicker thread. So we're going to apply this to the hook. And can you see me laying across there? It's about the 1/3 point back from the eye of the hook. I'm going to make a bump of tying thread on here that we should be able to see. I'm going to cut away the excess. Can you see the little bump right there?
Just barely.
Okay. Okay. Barely, but okay. Well, hey, believe me, it's there. Right there it is. Okay. Now, we're going to take a set of the lead eyes, and I'm going to put a 130 weighted eye on here, which is medium, so you guys can really see that. I'm going to hold it on my side of the hook, push it against the hook on an angle like this, hanging down. I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. Little snug, but not too snug. And the eye hangs. I'll turn it around here and let you take a look at this. The eye is hanging on the side of the hook like that. Okay, going to bring that back. Then what I'm going to do now, that's called cross wrapping. We're going to pull the eye across the hook straight and cross wrap from the front to the rear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. Then we're going to come back and we're going to straighten it up. Now we're going to go opposite from the back to the front on the other side of the eye. 6 turns, and then here 6 turns. Then we're going to make a helicopter wrap underneath the eyes and over the hook shank. Again, snugging it. You can see the hook bending in the vise from the pressure. About 5 or 6 turns of that. Then I'm going to take now and wind Palmer, wrap the tying thread to right behind the eye of the hook. And then I'm going to wind it back over top of that thread again to back to in front of the eyes. It's going to hang right here in front of the eyes. Now what that does, that little configuration of tying thread on your hook will allow the bucktail fibers to hold on to something. If you try to tie that down on that bare hook and you pull, you're going to pull some of it or all of it sometimes right off the hook shank itself. I want to show you something here on a deer tail. I have the bottom of this thing. This is another bottom, but I broke it off because that gets used on another type of a fly. And I'll show you here tonight about that. But what happens here now, we pretty much have 2/3 of the whole deer tail, which at least the top 2/3 are non-hollow fibers. The base down here has hollow fibers on it. This is actually the rump of the deer, not part of the tail, but the rump. This is the tail. What happens here, if you use the butt and you put it on the hook and you tighten down the thread, it's going to flare all over the place. If you use the solid hairs back around the 2/3 point, I'm going to get a little bundle here for you. And also, I think you guys heard the word sparse. If you can keep your flies what we call sparse, I'll tell you where I learned that word at. There was a gentleman that come into my fly shop way back in the early 80s when we opened up. And he was a trout fisherman and he fished at Clark Creek in Pennsylvania. And he come in and he picked off a package of Drake mallard flank feathers. They're the gray and the white barred feather that's on the sides of a duck. He laid them down on the table and he said, Bobby, he said, did you ever make a streamer fly with these things? I said, yeah, I think there was couple names of some flies that I put together with them on. And I said, they do catch some trout. And he said, I got one in the car that will outcatch the Clark's Creek spin fishermen with minnows. And I perked up and, oh, hey, go get it. You know, he brought that in, and it was the roughest looking fly I've ever seen tied, but it was deadly. And he gave me the reason why. He said, you see all them fibers on that feather? He said, when you drop that in the water, and I only use one feather. I don't use 2, 3, or 4 or 5 pieces like that. I just take that one, fold it over the hook, tie it on there. And he said, that's called sparse. And he said, what happens is when you drop that in the water and the sunlight hits it, it looks like it's alive because you got them bars in that white feather and they're moving through each other, and the fly is alive in the water. That's what he was trying to tell me about that, by keeping them sparse and let the sunlight show through them. Believe it or not, that was one of my favorite trout fly patterns for years. He could fish that thing in heavy current, stand at the bottom of the pool, throw the fly straight up the current. And he had a stripping technique that he had down perfect for those type of creeks. He would strip that fly back to him with a low rod tip and just a little faster than what the current was coming down. He made the minnows swim downstream, and them minnows coming downstream, them Clark's Creek brown trout just could not resist that. So there's a little tip I just wanted to tell you about keeping your fly sparse. So the sunlight goes through the fibers, they see the fibers flash up and down, and the flash comes out of the fly. It's a big help. Now, we're going to take this little clump. I've already pulled a couple long hairs out. We're going to hold the tips of it. We're going to pull the bulk out of the bundle I just cut. You can see it coming out here. I keep pulling on that till hardly anything comes out at all. And then I'm going to take a look at this now and squeeze that thing into an oval. Now, the oval word, I'll show you what that means here when we cut this. The length of the fly. Now, I don't care how long you put stuff on hooks. I don't care how long the fly is. But something to make it look good is 2. This is 1, 2.5 times the hook length. So that's 2 1/2 times. 1, 2.5, right there. Now, we're going to take and squeeze this into an oval. We're going to squeeze it and then cut it with the scissors, flat. Can you see the flat cut, the oval cut? Now I'm going to pull this out here so you guys can see this a little better, but there's the oval cut right there. Now we're going to take and tilt this. We have to tilt it down so the lower part of the oval is touching the hook shank on the top, right in front of the tying thread. Can you see the tying thread? And we're going to just come around it lightly, pull straight up and wrap straight forward. That's going to collect everything that we have in that oval, except maybe 1 or 2 hairs. Like that right there. Now, I want you to look at the back of the hook. This is pretty important here to make this thing shaped in the water. You can see the opening right here. I will take this clump now and hold it, pull it straight back and not down. Don't force it down on the hook. Bring your tying thread behind the eyes. Go around it lightly, lift straight up. One more tighten and turn, and now palmer wrap it back 1, 2, 3 times. And then palmer wrap it front 1, 2, 3 times. Now, if you look at this, how nice that laid. There's no flare. There's nothing. We didn't over tighten this thing. And the bottom of the hook should be bare. Okay. Now we're going to bring the tying thread forward of the eyes again. We're going to go right to the back of the rear of the eye of the hook. 1, 2, or 2 or 3 turns, let it hang there. We're going to turn our fly upside down, if you want to call it that. Actually, now the right side is up of the fly and the belly is down. And we're going to add some, we can just use anything you want, but crystal flash. This is called multicolored. It probably has the amount of the colors in most of the bait fish that's around. You have some silver, blue tints, a couple little gold tints and stuff. It's all mixed in one here for us. I'm going to take and cut what I call a goodly bunch. It's not 1 or 2 strands. It's not 5 or 6. It could be 8 or 10 strands of the flash together. I had a guy come up to me one time. We were tying these things and he said, "Man, that's way too much flash in that fly." I said, "Who said so?" "I did." And I said, "I don't think it's too much because you don't like it. I do. And we catch fish on the flash." I try to protect some of the old sayings around. I go like, do you remember the spin rod bass guys? And they throw these big spinner baits. They sound like an old tin can full of lead wraps, lead BBs, making all kind of noise. And they have the biggest flashing blade ever built on that thing, and it catches all the big fish. Why wouldn't they eat your fly with flashing? And they sure do. The big boys do. Maybe in hard to fish places. We got places down here where the saltwater fish are fished over real hard. And they're not scared of the flash. They're scared of everything on that fly because they've been hooked so many times. If you guys have time, I got a little story to tell you here. Right in back of my house here, I have a pond. And I take and I actually have probably 50 to 100 bluegills in the back of my house because I feed them every night. I like to throw pellets out there and watch them come up. Jackie and I experimented with them. Now, I've been here 5 years at this place. And we experimented with these sunfish. We would catch them on flies only once or twice to catch the same fish. And after that, they would not eat the fly you had on. So we had to change colors, change sizes, change a bunch of stuff, go to the surface, go under. We did all that. And then all of a sudden, we couldn't catch a fish. I mean, you throw pellets out there and they were everywhere. They were and we could not catch them on anything. I sent Jackie to the grocery store and I said, you know what? We're going to catch these fish one night. Get me some Niblets corn, can of Niblets corn. The first night we used threw the corn out. We put the corn on a little size 10 hook. I caught 27 sunfish and give her the rod, and she caught 32. Just out of on all quickly like that. Now I got to tell you this. This is how smart fish get when they're fished hard. Within 3 days, we could not catch them on the grain of corn anymore. Now that's something to think about on how we train the animals that we play with. We train them sometimes not to take it seriously and just walk away from everything we throw in the water because they've been caught and released so many different times. And those are they're small hand-sized bluegills that are that smart that we can't catch them at all anymore. I quit. I just feed them now and laugh at them because they earned their freedom. So I want to show you something here with this flash, how to put it on your tying thread. Pull your tying thread straight back towards you. Lay the flash on top of the thread, reach the thumb front and your third finger, get a hold of it like that, fold it and hold it straight up from your fly. Pull the crystal flash down with the bobbin going down, down, down until it touches the top of that hook. Now take the tying thread. I'm going to shorten this up a little bit. And I can show you now. There. Now I'm going to go right down and then back over top of that flash. 3 times. I'll hold that in the middle of the hook for you. You want the flash in the middle. I'm going to lift this up, spread it with the hook across the hook point so it gets separated. Now I'm going to look down here and see how long my white bucktail hair is. Here's the end of the bucktail hair. Add 1/2 of an inch longer to 3/4 of an inch longer of your flash out the back of the fly. That'll add a little flash tail flashing out the back of the tail. What Lefty found out about this deal was that some of the bass that were chasing the minnows, and they would chase our fly, and then when we would strip it hard away, they kind of turned and went away. And I said, they're not afraid of that, Lefty. I don't believe they can see the fly where it went. So we started letting the flash hang out the back and improved the catch rate tremendously, because that loose flash outside of that material keeps on moving and moving and moving, even on the drop of the fly between strips. Everything during your presentation, that never quits throwing light off once it's out of that material. Now we got the belly on, we got the flash in the middle. I'm going to select a piece of chartreuse green deer hair, a little clump, and I mean a pretty sparse one. Pull it straight up. When you pull it straight up from the hide and push down and cut with the scissors, what it does, it changes every piece of deer hair we just took off of there. You can see, if I can get this up here to you, you can see where the long hairs are surrounded by the short ones. Short ones in the middle, long ones around the outer side. Otherwise, if we would cut that off flat of that deer tail, you'd have long pieces on one side and short ones on the other. The way we cut this off changes the whole dynamics of that clump of deer hair. Now we're going to look at this. I already pulled the shorter pieces out I could get out of there. I'm going to look at this. I'm going to show you something here. We're going to keep this hair as long as or shorter. Don't take the top fly and hang it out over the white, because you're going to disturb the flashing of the tinsel in the water. So we're going to take this now. I'm going to get the flash blue up on the top, or the crystal flash. And we said, okay, that's long enough. That's just about the same length. And we're going to now squeeze this into an oval. I'm going to pull it out so you can see it. Going to touch the fly tying thread is now back, right at the back where the head's going to be, the rear of the head. I'm going to show you now how to do this. Is tilt it. Tilt that whole thing straight down. Make a pinch wrap. Pull straight up. Now wrap straight forward while you're holding that up, and it will form all them end pieces into a beautiful looking tapered head. Just keep working back and forward, because this is thin thread and it's not bulky. So you got to make your own head look pretty good with something thin. So you're going to be wrapping quite a bit. How's that looking there, guys? Now, I got a little story to tell you about this whip finisher tool here. We did a video, me and Lefty together, and Lefty's are going like this finger, and he says, I picked this up and I said, oh, he said, Bobby, you don't know how to do it by hand, do you? I said, yes, I do. I said, but I sell these. These are whip finishing tools that really do work. I'm going to hook it on the thread, take the back end, come around, turn the thing, and we got a little V here. We're just going to wrap that across that head. Then we're going to tilt this back up, pop it off the back, and pull straight down and take the tool off. I'm going to come up now and cut this. Now, here's a little tip I can give you about let me see once here. I can say a couple of things on how to do this. I want you to look at the fly. Our method of tying this, because we were cutting ovals and tilting the material, is that we have a narrow front end and a wide body. The wide body is your thinnest part of the hairs. And when you drop this in the water, it's going to stay like that until you pull it. When you pull it, it's going to shape itself like that. It'll shape itself going through the water because the water pressure pushing the thin ends down will actually move that whole fibers in that fly. And that's why the gentleman told me that you need to keep them sparse so the light shines through between the fibers and looks like light. So anyhow, now there's a couple ways you can cover this stuff and put a nice head on it. I'm going to show you two different methods here to coat that. One is called Solarez. The other one is a light to cure the Solarez. The best, I got to say this is the best glue that I have ever used on anything. Putting hooks in popping bugs, sealing up the threads. Wapsie calls it fly tire cement. Comes in a bottle like this, has a little brush on the end. And watch you don't get that in your fingers, guys. Your fingers don't come apart. Now, I'm going to take this brush the way it is. I'm going to part my fly like that. I'm going to take this brush, take one little lap of it and clean it off, come down over my tying thread, right down the middle, hit both sides of the head, cover the eyes, go back and cover the top of that head. I'm going to hang this on. I got a bunch of cups here with eyeballs in. I'm going to show you something here. I can take this cup. Can you see the cup? No, I'll do it now. I can take the cup, hang the fly upside down, and let it hang there and dry. Now, when that's dry, and it takes a few minutes for it to completely dry, the guys at Wapsie tells me you have a bomb-proof fly. Okay, so there you go. Okay, now that's a Clouser minnow, and I am going to put a card with these that I get done here tonight, and we're going to mail them to you folks, and you can do with them what you want. Now, we're going to make a half and half fly. This is the fly here. The reason of this fly is because of my friend Lefty. This is called the half and half. The back end is tied like he ties his Lefty's deceiver. The front half is tied like the Clouser minnow. I did this up on the Susquehanna River to show the bigger bass. I'm 18-inch plus bass, a little bit more meat, than what the thin minnow gives you, the look. So we call this a half and half. This has become one of the favorite striper flies in the world, right here. You throw that in a school of stripers and you're going to catch stripers on this fly. I'll guarantee you that. Now, I'm going to take a size 2 hook again. That way we can tone this down and make it small. Half and half, that you guys have more advantage of getting smaller materials and it's great big stuff. We're going to take our 6/0 thread again. We're going to put that thread bump 1/3 behind the eye of the hook. Trying to make it big enough so you guys can see it. Now, let me get a bigger eye. I need a bigger eye for this. And you're making half and halves, and you're going to be probably fishing them on 9 or 10 weight rods. You won't have any trouble casting them with a 1/30 or 1/24 ounce set of lead eye. Let me tell you something about the weight of these lead eyes. Again, that's was I think 6 one way and 6 the other. Pull them up on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tighten it up. Now we're going to tie feathers on here. So what we're going to do, we're going to come back and spiral wrap the back of the hook shank itself. I'm going to confront the same way. And right there. That's our starting point. I'm going to pick out, 4, maybe 6. Let's do it. Let's do it with 6 hackles. Just pick them out so they match. If you get any twisted ones, don't use them because they will do nothing but confuse your fly pattern, spin on you. And if one of them goes haywire up here, I'll show you what you do with it too. You just pull it out of the fly. Now we're going to lay these with the convex sides together. Convex is inside, an inside curve. This is convex on here. We're going to lay these together. There's 2 here together, and I'm going to try to get the 3rd one. It's a little problem until you get them pretty even. Okay, there's our 3 right there. Now we're going to take 3 from the other end, turn them concave sides in towards the stack of feathers. 1, 2, and 3. Now here we got 6 hackles. All of them, and you don't have to have them even because you remember me telling you about the light, the movement in the fly. You want everything to move back there that's separate from each other. It never stops moving. We're going to take this now, measure it. It's about another 2 1/2 times the hook length. We're going to cut these off completely flat. Hold them right in back of the eyes of the fly. Make a pinch wrap up, pinch it, round, and pull straight up, and then wind it a couple times to secure it. Now, watch what I'm going to do with these hackles, and I wind them down to the back of the hook. Lift them up. Light turns. Now tighten it. And the hackles will sit right on top of that hook shank for you, just like that. This is the belly of the fly, so you want it on the lower side of the hook shank. on the top. Now, we're going to put a collar. Lefty sticks a collar of deer hair around his deceivers. We can do the same thing with this now by using the hair that flares off of the butt section. I'm going to take a clump of this, cut it off of here. Do it the same way, pull up and cut it. Now I'm going to get a hold of these tips and I'm going to pull that under the short stuff out. Pull it out. I'm going to look at this. I don't want it going back past the feathers because that's going to hinder the movement of the back of the fly. So let's do it about like that there, somewhere within a half an inch of the feather ends. I'm going to cut it again in an oval. I'm going to pull this out so you can see it. I'm going to set this down flat now, flat on top of that with the butt ends in back of the eyes. I'm going to come around lightly twice. I'm going to push down on the bundle so it surrounds the hook. Tap them a little bit like that. Now I'm going to wind these down by winding towards the eyes. There you go. What that did, that little bit of pushing down with your thumb when light turns allows all that deer hair to follow the thread around the hook itself. Now I'm going to go back to the regular part of the deer tail. And we're going to put a belly on this. And again, it's pretty sparse because you have a lot of hair on there right now. I'm going to look again. I don't want these going back here. I want them about that long. I'm going to hold this and cut this in an oval. Squeeze it. Come bring the tying thread forward of the eyes now. Put your little Palmer thread wrap on there. Keep the thread back against the eye, and we're going to tilt this right here. Lift up, wind forward. It'll all wind down taper. Now, this is going to be different than what we do with the Clouser minnow because we're not going Palmer the belly on this. We're just going to make a color, and we're going to push this back. I'm going to push down so the sides of the clump of the hair spread across the bottom of the fly. I'll show you here what we're doing here in a minute. I'm going to come back about maybe 1/8 of an inch with tying thread, make a little collar of tying thread, and that spreads that hackle or then deer hair fibers across the bottom of the fly, which actually makes a bigger bait fish looking thing than what we did when we tied the Clouser. I'm going to now come front, go to the front of the back of the eye of the fly. I'm going to get you guys some flash of view here. Now this is not crystal flash. This is flash of view. Straight strands. This is the same stuff, twisted, not the same color, but this is twisted flash of view. This is flat flash of view. I like to add this in the flash, which really, if you want to call pearl is pretty inviting to everything and reflects a lot of different colors off of it. In one of my white Clousers that I use myself, and we sell them too, I'll take pearl and silver crystal flash and mix it together. When you mix silver with pearl, you change the hue from a bluish color to a bluish green color of the flash coming off. That's the change that most bait fish look like on each side of them when they're in the sun and they're flashing. Now we're going to fold this down over just like we did the other one. Pull up, right straight up, and then we're going to pull the bobbin away so the flash is pulled right down on the hook, and we're going to wind over top of that, keeping it again in the center of the hook. So you want your flash in the center of the fly. Come back. Here's the end of the hackles. We're going to move back a half an inch or so and cut that off. Okay. Now we're going to put it back on this half and half. We're going to have a chartreuse and white half and half. I want to show you something here that if you're trying to make a heavier dress fly and you cut a too big a clump of deer hair or squirrel tail hair or calf tail hair, and you try to tighten it down, and when you pull on it, if you wrap from the nose back, you're going to be able to pull all that right out of your fly, out of your wraps. If we take two sparse pieces, I want to show you that right now. We got pretty sparse here. Got to get rid of them ends. Lay it up on the top here. I'm going to take a little bit of this bundle out, because the two sparse pieces makes it pretty nice. Right, now I'm going to cut this in an oval. Well, tilt it down, come around it lightly, bind it forward, come back again, just about to that full point. I'm going to take the clump that I just took off. I'm going to cut that in an oval, tie that right on top of this. Now you're getting security in your fly. You have stuff in there that won't pull out. And we can make a nice tapered head while we're doing that. Four or five turns with your whip face tool is usually enough. Just come up, cut that thread off. Come on out there. Now I want to look at the profile of this, the way we tied it and how wide it is. Everything is spread apart, allows the water to move all the fibers in the back. When you strip this thing through the water, it gets narrow, and when it stops moving, it spreads right out and looks meaty to the fish that's chasing it. The flash tail fibers hanging out past the feathers allow this to be spotted every time it dips or moves or goes somewhere that you're stripping it. The fish do not lose its tracking ability to the fly. And again, you want to take, I kind of hold it. I don't like to get the glue on my fingers, but let's try something here at once. I'm going to trust myself a little bit. Pull that apart. Take your brush and go right here. Touch that. Give a shot over the eyes and completely do the head. Now, if you want to shape this fly and keep it always shaped, watch what you can do with this glue. Touch right in back of your tying thread. Just touch it like that's all you need. And then pull these into a straight piece like that. And let that dry. That will always stay that way for you. There's
Hey,
your,
Bob,
yes, sir.
I think you mentioned that you use
Uh,
the hollow hair for this fly.
Yes,
Oh, why the hollow hair?
because it spreads out better than the solid hair does.
Okay.
When Lefty does most of his deceivers, if you can see how wide the hair is at the back end, he'll use a clump of the butt of the tail, and then the front end gets the hollower hairs, and they won't spread out as wide. Or if you'd use that butt hair the whole way through, you'd have a real wide looking, fuzzy looking fly. But the first batch with the deer hair off of the butt section actually allows that to flare around them feathers like that.
Okay, Bob, we got another question from the audience.
Yeah.
Does the fly with feathers move or look different than the one with deer hair?
Yeah, as I was talking about this, what this does, it resembles a wider bodied bait fish, you know, a heavier type of minnow. The Clouser here, I can hold them both up for you. The Clouser resembles most of the stream minnow, the thin minnows. I gotta get that up on the top here. Now look at the difference in the body compared to this. See how much more one looks like more of a good bite, a good bit as far as body's concerned to the bait. And then this is kind of a smaller, slimmer type minnow bait. Now they're both good. They both work. That's for sure. So.
Good. Bob, we have one more question from the audience.
Yeah,
what
please.
was the name of the sparse fly made with duck feathers?
The guy was so into the fly tying himself, he had no name for it. If you'd have seen that fly, and I'm not a doubter on most everything that somebody tells me. I believe what they say. The fly had black thread for the head, a big bulky black head, and he painted it with paint white. And when I made him, I just used white thread. I actually gave him some spools of white thread so he wouldn't have to paint the head and that. But there was no name to that fly. There's a fly similar to that, and I can't think of the name right now of the fly. I used them a good bit when I was a kid for trout fishing, but I just called it a Drake mallard flank fly is all I ever called it. That's all I had on the hook. Okay,
great. Bob, one more question, then we'll let you get to your last fly. When you're fishing the traditional Clouser, do you more often use floating line or a sink tip line?
That all depends where I'm fishing and how deep I'm fishing. When I fished the Susquehanna River, we had water depths from 2 feet to maybe 8 or 10. I had much better luck with a full sinking number 3 fly line. Are you guys familiar with the numbers of the sink rates? Like 1 would be an intermediate, real slow. 2 would be a little faster than the intermediate, And a 3 would be actually what I call the perfect sink rate. And then you got 4s and 5s and 6s, and they go right to the bottom. As soon as they hit the water, they're down on the bottom. You're dragging your fly. If you take a full sinking line and buy the number 3 sink rate, you can fish your Clouser minnow at any depth you want to fish it. When you start, if it sinks down to 1 foot and you start that fast retriever that we use, it'll stay at that 1 foot depth for you. If you drop it down and let it get down to 1 foot off of the bottom and you start stripping it, it will stay at that 1 foot off the bottom depth. It's not a line, unless you let it go down on the bottom, where you're going to be pulling your fly through all kind of muck and rocks and stuff like that. The really fast sinkers are pretty much just used in the ocean, where they have good credibility in 20, 30 feet of water. But where you got waters from 10 feet to 2, you're using a full sinking line. Also, on that full sinking line, for smallmouth, we use 8 and 10 pound tippets that were only 4 feet long. If you have anything longer than that, your fly is going to be hanging way up on the top, and it just, you lose connection with your fly. A good 4 foot long leader allows you to do anything with that fly you want, because when you're stripping, you got that fly in your hand and you can feel an instant strike too from that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, now we're going to do our this shallow water fly, guys. I don't know why we all don't buy it. It takes me hardly any time. I've got to show it to you because this is a bent hook. I'm going to put it in the vise so you can take a look at it. This is the Air X 250. Shrimp hook. I'm going to use the same thread that I have. I'm going to put the thread, if you can see where the rise of the hook starts, I'll show you something here. We'll put the thread right in that groove, and I'm going to wind up the shank towards the hook point. Yeah, I bet you guys wish I'd used thicker thread, but I don't like the stuff. So anyhow, I want to show you, these are little 180 eyes. I think I showed you that maybe here. That's 180. Now you can use this, or you can use the little bead chains. I kind of prefer the 1/8 inch diameter bead chain, which is a kind of a smallish medium size. We're going to lay this eye on the side of the hook. I'm going to lash it fast to the hook point, to the hook side. Do the same thing, 6 turns. And then I'm going to push it up on the top, pull the back side so the front far side comes forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6. And then do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then do the helicopter wrap around that. And then that's ready to roll. Now we're going to turn this hook upside down, if you want to call it that. Now we're going to take our tying thread. We're going to cover shank to behind the eye of the hook, and then we're going to cover it again, Palmer wraps to back to the eye. Okay, now this is pretty simple, fellas. We're going to take make sure we have the non-hollow deer hair for this, which is at least the top 2/3 of the deer tail. And again, I like sparse. I usually pull out the oddball hairs if I see them sticking somewhere. This actually keeps your bundles fairly thin so you're not making bulky things. We're going to make one about that long right there. One and 1.5 times the hook length. Now, we're going to cut this into an oval just like we did before. Not much changes in the tying procedure. Lay it down, touch the hook, come around and do a pinch wrap here to grab that. Now just wind forward. Okay. Now we can use, we got so many different flashes. It's unbelievable. I think there's 16 different colors. We're going to take our minnow looking stuff, I guess they call this rainbow. Excuse me. I'm going to fold it over the tying thread, pull it forward, lash it down on top of the hook shank like that right there. Lay it back over between the hook shank and that tail and cut it off 1/2 inch longer than that hair. Now we're going to take the chartreuse hair, and again, we don't want this too thick. Now that method I showed you on the 1/2 and 1/2 where you can tie 2 small bundles, that works good to keep your flies together longer. But also I want to show you how to put one bunch in one. Measure this. Pinch it into an oval and cut her flat. Now, hold this oval right in front of the tying thread on a big angle like this, pinch wrap. Now, just come forward. Wind it a couple times over here, and you're going to have a nice looking head without really trying. Now there's a material around called body braid. If you want to cover your hook with the body braid, you can. I don't think it adds any more effectiveness to the fly, but it sure has selling appeal better than just a plain bare hook like this. But this is how we fish them, and that's how I tied them like that. That thing there you can throw with a I don't know if I would want to use a 4-weight rod, but a 5 and 6 weight, they'll love that fly.
So Bob, the main difference between this and the traditional Clouser minnow is you tied the hair on one side?
Yes, yeah. When Lefty and I fooled with these flies, and the original way that I tied them is this here. This is the original way that when Lefty come up to my place, I give him a handful of them. And then he went back home and said, you know, they work pretty good in weedy places and over tree limbs. He said, but if we take Bobby and tie that all on the one side to hook, we can fish at just about any place that you want without it getting hung up, but you still can't jerk these flies through grass. You got to let them walk through. So, and he had a method of bending a hook down that he called a bend back hook. You had to bend both ends of that, or the darn hook just wasn't a very good hooking system. So, but then we got these hooks that are already bent, and we started tying them on the one side of the hook, and you can take and throw that thing in a pine tree and slowly walk it out of the tree itself without any obstructive jerking the thing. If you jerk them, they'll turn over on their side and stick in a limb. But it's a good thing for lightweight flies, your smaller rods, your shallower water, throw it in lily pads. You can pull this thing. If you walk it out, don't strip it out, walk it out. It'll go over everything and not get hung up for you.
What do you call this one?
This is the shallow water series of the Clouser minnow.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What was the hook that you used this on?
What's that?
What was the hook
Oh,
that you tied this on?
yeah, this one here is made by the Eric's company, and it's a shrimp style 250. Eric
250.
250.
Okay. Okay. And we have another question from the audience.
That's okay.
It's asked, do you tie any flies using round weedless hooks?
I don't know what he means by the round hook.
Jim, would you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Oh, I'm still muted. I can't.
No,
oh.
no,
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 not
no.
you, Bob. The guy that
No,
asked.
you're
Can you
you're
hear me?
good.
Yes,
we
Jim.
can hear you.
Okay. Bob, I saw a video where you all were talking about these round hooks that basically instead of having to set the hook, it's as the hook is being spit out, it catches the lip and you don't actually have to set it.
Yeah, that's called a circle hook.
Circle hook.
Yeah, and we fished that. Lefty did an article back in the late, I guess, early 90s on circle hooks, and he sent me to Mexico to a camp, and I took a good fishing buddy along with me, and we fished the circle hooks for one solid week. We put more tarpon. I don't care who hears this or whatever. If you fish them circle hooks the right way, they are deadly. We put more tarpon in the boat in 1 week than what they do in a month by using circle hooks. We landed big snook. We landed big bonefish in deep water. We fished a lot of deep water where we couldn't see fish, and we caught big stuff on circle hooks. The problem with the circle hook back then, the guides that we went with, me and my buddy Tom Whittle went with, the guides had a meeting on these circle hooks every night we come in. We caught more fish than anybody else that's been there, landed more fish with a circle hook. But the guides, by the end of the week, the guide I had said that all these guys here voted down the circle hook. And I looked at him and I said, why? He said, we can't holler, set the hook.
Right. I remember, I thought that was hysterical.
So this for one reason why they like that chatter. They like to holler about set the hook, and they like to give the gringos all kind of tips, you know. And Tom Whittle was up on the front of the boat, my buddy Tom, and we're being pushed across some kind of an inlet there with mangroves on both sides. And we looked out and we seen this tarpon come out of the side of the mangroves and come across that open flat. And of course, the guide seen him too and told us tarpon come where he was and all. And Tom is one heck of a caster. He can throw 90 feet of fly line without his arm, I think it is, if you want to call it that. But anyhow, the tarpon is about 70, 80 feet away. He comes across in front of the boat. Tom laid the fly about 10 or 12 feet in front of that fish. When it hit the water, the tarpon just opened up like a shot cannon. He flew out after that fly. He grabbed it. Tom's holding the rod dead still, not doing anything. The guide is hollering, set the hook, set the hook. And I said, he's already hooked. Did you see him jump and where the hook is sticking in the corner of his mouth? The hook on a tarpon, the circle hook, even with the Clouser minnow tied on the circle hook, that armor plate that goes across the top of the tarpon's mouth, that hook, because of riding the hook up, penetrated that on every tarpon we caught. And we caught tons of tarpon in that week with them circle hooks. But I'm not going to tell you, hey, go ahead and use them, but you're free to make a choice on them. And if you do and learn how to fish them, you'll love them.
Do you have a brand that you recommend?
The only circle hooks that I had any contact with back then, and I still have now, are the Mustad Demon hooks.
So do you dress those hooks with anything at all?
I bought so many of them, I have thousands of them yet. What's that?
Do you dress them with anything at all, or?
No, I just put a pair of lead eyes on, tied a Clouser minnow on them. That's all I do. The hook itself didn't make me change anything that we tied. We just tied it on that hook. And when the tarpon, or most any fish, even the stripers that we caught on them things, soon as they suck that fly in, they turn. And when they turn, it is pulled right up in the corner of their mouth. My buddy Tom Whittle, when he came home, he called me. He said, I had to go to the bank and write a check out. He said, I bought every circle hook I could find. And I can understand why, because he caught a ton of fish too. So. But the circle hook, I don't know how to say this, has a good name and also a bad name. And the bad name is because you can't strike the fish, you can't strip strike them, you can't do any of that. You just let them fish hook themselves, and as soon as they run off, they're hooked. It's another method of learning to fish some of the gear you have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else got any other questions or anything?
Let's
Hey,
see.
Bob, this was Jan again. Did you have a hard time not setting the hook when you use those circle hooks?
Why, of course. If you
How many times did you try to set the hook?
You wanted to hear me call myself the dumb shit, why? Yeah, I tried to set the hook already. Yeah, you learn it. You learn everything. I pulled a number of flies out of their mouth. Yeah.
Bob, with the circle hook, you did not dress it any different or add any glue or modify it in any way? You just tied it normal?
No, just if you tie the Clouser minnow, there's enough of room. Most of them, the 1/0 was probably the smallest we used. 1/0 up to 3/0. They have enough of shank on them that you can tie your Clouser minnow on there, and it looks good.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Yeah, please.
Guys, you can type your questions into the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask it live.
Did you guys give Jackie your mailing address? I'm going to actually sign a card and mail these 3 flies to you guys.
Yeah, I'll
Yes,
send.
I texted her this afternoon.
Okay, good, good.
Well,
Any more
Bob, thank
stories
you so
you have?
much. This has been an honor.
Well,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure for me.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat. Besides chartreuse, what other colors are your favorite color flies?
Oh, here we go. All right, now, do you guys got access to our website?
Yes.
We
Jan, type that in the chat, please.
Jackie, is that paper back there? We just put the pink things on.
It's just Bob.
You can see the pictures of that. See if you can find it laying over there. Yeah, okay. I got trying to get my girlfriend to find half of my stuff. Hey,
Bob, what's the name of the website?
Clouser's Fly Shop.
Yeah, clousersflyshop.com.
Okay.
There's I want to give you I don't want you tying 16 to 20 different colors of flies. Right now we have 6 of them that are brand new with pink mixed in. Pink and white, and again pink and chartreuse, those colors. And the only flash that we use in those 6 or 7 colors, here it is. Can you guys see that or get a shot of that?
Just raise it up a little bit, please. A little bit higher. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so pink and chartreuse and white.
Yeah, and you can olive and pink is good on olive on top and pink on the belly. But I want to explain something to you about flash and flashaboo. All them 6 patterns right there have the same combination of flash in them, regardless of the bottom color or the top color or whatever. It's the name of the flashaboo is pink, and the name of the crystal flash is pink. Those 2 mixed together, one of them will show a bright flash and the other one will show the sparkles of the side of the bait fish when it hits the light. That's what the crystal flash is for. The flashaboo, the flat stuff, is to give that flash of attraction to the fly before they, which actually makes the fish go towards the fly.
Okay, we have another question. When did you start tying?
14 years old. My dad was quite a fisherman. He fished some flies, not much. He bought me a fly tying kit when I was for my 14th birthday. I got wound up in that, and I tied all kinds of patterns. And when I graduated from high school, we had to have a project. The guys made carburetors and they made chain link things and Tinker Toy stuff and that. And I didn't have a mind for that. I had a mind for fishing. And these flies fascinated me so much, even though it took me a while to catch fish with them. That's another thing. You can tie a fly, but if you don't know how to use it, it don't work. So that's the other thing. Anyhow, this project that I did, we had to have it done at the end of the year, and it was going to be displayed in the school gymnasium. And I went over to the 5 and 10 cent store and I bought cardboard sheets, white cardboard sheets. And then I went into the hardware store and I bought wood lays and I made stands out of these. And what I did with them white cardboard sheets, I tied flies that whole year out of the magazines, old names and stuff. And I would take and I would glue them on the piece of cardboard and had my mother, because her penmanship was 10 times better than mine, write out on little white cards that we used Scotch tape to tape the name to this cardboard. And I had the name of every fly underneath every fly that I had glued on there. Till I was done, I had 325 flies on display. I put them in the gymnasium. Some people liked them, other people thought I was crazy and stuff like that, you know, which it didn't matter to me. So when the judging was over, I was so elated. They give me an honorable mention of 37 different displays. They had a 4-place display and the honorable mention. I was number 5. Which it just tickled me to no end that, and you know what? The ladies like them flies. The color combination and the prettiness of the fly. That's how I got that. So anyhow, I've been doing that ever since.
Bob, we got another question in from the audience. How does color matter related to depth? Like, do you change the color if you're fishing it deep or fishing it shallow? And also, do you ever use black?
Let me tell you something about black. I can't see it. I don't like to tie it and I don't use it. I have very, very few fish ever I caught on a black Clouser minnow because I just don't believe it. I need that. And I ended up with the chartreuse and white, all white, and yellow and chartreuse mixture. Those were my favorite ones. On the Susquehanna River, I tied a fly that looked like the baby smallmouth. I wanted to get a fly with dark bronze flash in it. I wanted to make sure that it was a dull looking fly. I spent time with that thing and I put white belly, a green middle, and a kind of a rusty looking brown back on the thing. Now, not much, dressed sparsely, so not so thick to make it look like a stick or a shadow in the water. And I stuck gold, crystal flash, and bronze or brown, whatever you want to call it, brown flashaboo in the middle. I give them to my buddy, John Lowell, at that time. John was a good friend of mine, and he's since been fishing in heaven. So he took this pattern out on the Susquehanna River and come back in my shop the same night, laid it on the table, and he said, Bob, he said, you better tie these flies so they stay together. I'm looking at this fly. It had probably 6 or 7 deer hair strands left in it, and the flash. And I said, John, how many bass did you catch on that fly? He said, 65.
Whoa.
I said, and you're complaining? And he of course, this laughed. He pulled my leg, of course. But I tied that up, and then Lefty came up, and Lefty went out on the river with that, and he come back and he said, Bobby, can you make me a dozen of them so I can take them somewhere? Okay. So, but anyhow, that was one of my darkest flies color combinations that I've really ever used. And I came down here to Florida a couple of years ago, and I caught a ton of redfish on that same fly. So I think of the dark flash, it kind of looks more like they're dark bottom type minnows that are around. I don't really know. Haven't met a fish or a bass to answer any of my questions ever. So, and I think my buddy was a smart guy, told me, he said, Bob, look, they never went to school. They don't know anything. Okay. So anybody got anything else? Well, hey guys, I enjoyed myself tonight. I hope you all did too.
Bob, this was wonderful. It's just been an honor to watch you tie and to see you.
Well, thank you so much. All of you guys.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
it's nice to see you again.
Hey, you bet. By the way, and when November gets here, I will turn 85.
That's great.
Oh.
We'll come down and have a big birthday party.
Hey, I'm going to try to get a free cake out of this thing. Chuck Ferinsky, the guy that has the fly fishing shows, he has one in I guess it's New Jersey. He has a fall one in November. And I said, Chuck, I'm going to come to that under one condition. You make me a big old chocolate cake.
There you go. That'd be great. What's the date? What's the date of your birthday? November what?
11/12/38.
Okay.
So you bet.
Well, thank you so
Bob,
much.
great job.
We
Thank you.
were,
Hey, it's good to see you again, young lady. I sure appreciate everything that you guys have done for me over the years.
we were honored to have,
And I just want to say, have a blessed.
thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. Everyone
Bob.
stay
This was-
on.